Hey folks, HeirofCarthage here, and is there a better place to find Norsca than the desert? I mean, this seems like where they typically fit in. It's matchmaking, so you don't really get to pick a theme here, but I am playing against Norsca on the ladder, and I was thinking this was going to be interesting because I picked Vampire, and my opponent counterpicked me with Norsca, which made me think that, and he built his army pretty quickly and readied up fairly quick, not like crazy quick. So it made me feel like that he must have had some kind of counter plan to what he thought I would do. So let's take a look at his army. He's got a unit of Fimir warriors. It's going to be a dangerous unit. Lots of armor piercing. It sunders armor, magic attacks, very good against ethereal. Both the Frostworms also magic attack, and then they have frostbite and breath attacks. There is a Marauder Chieftain. He's supported by a Fimir Balefiend, Lore of Fire. And then if we take a look at the infantry, there's a couple of Marauder Berserkers, and then a couple of heavier hitting Marauder Champions, along with some Marauder Spearmen. So my opponent came not exactly how I expected. I expected him to come heavy with monsters. A lot of people make this choice when they're coming up against the vampires because the vampires don't have ranged, and they can sometimes struggle to take out monstrous units. It tends to be an easy way to drive things, albeit it does have risk of its own. Now, with my army, I wanted to bring something that I didn't think was as predictable with vampires, right? Maybe this is very predictable. I don't know. So I've got 4 skeleton warriors, 2 white kings on a horse, and no abilities or anything else special with them, 4 skeleton spearmen, 2 Vargulfs. I have 1 hex wraith and 1 dire pack, and then a blood knight. And my lord is going to be Kemmler. And where is Krell? Where there's Kemmler? Oh my gosh. Where there's Kemmler, there's Krell. Now, right off the bat, my opponent left some of his Marauder Champions open, and he didn't have his Frostworms close enough or his Fimir. And so I took advantage and put some damage down on these Marauder Champions. Wanted to get anything I could get for free. And the good thing about the vampires is that even if my units take damage, I can heal it. And as we heal it, we should be able to resurrect units as well. Oh, I also have a unit of Fellbats. So my army was meant to be relatively large in number, but also have a whole lot of hero units. So I've got 2 White Kings, 2 Vargulfs, and Kemmler, and then he can summon Krell. That's going to be 6 different things that Norsca has to think about, on top of the Hex Wraiths, which he is thinking about. And I let them stray a bit too far, and you can see how quickly the Frostworm would lay waste to these Hex Wraiths. I'm not going to have that, though. I'm going to go ahead and give these guys a quick heal and get all those units back. This is probably a waste of magic, though. I probably should have waited. But I just wanted to get these Hex Wraiths all fixed up and ready for battle, so just resurrected their units there. And we're going to keep on going. But yeah, I don't know if that was the best spend of magic for me. Anyway, my opponent wanted to fight way over on this side of the map, so he made me cross the entire map. I figured maybe he would want to try and get some breath attacks before combat, and I'm a little surprised that he hasn't done that yet. Because, I mean, if any reason for him to pull way back and let me come to him, that seems like a decent reason, unless he's trying to play against the vigor on these skeletons. I don't remember if they really play a lot into vigor, though. But anyway, yeah, here he comes. It's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse. He really wants my Hex Wraiths. I'm not going to give him the Hex Wraiths. Not easily, at least. I'm luring him right now and attempting a couple of traps to try and get his Frostworm. He's going to leave a breath attack there. I'm just going to move out of the way. Shouldn't take a lot of damage on the Hex Wraiths. Should definitely probably trying to use the breath attack on my Chaff. And you can see the way he's lined up here in a straight line. There's some part of me that saw this and was thinking, all right, you know what? I should just attack like one piece of him and not the whole. This is I want to pause this for a second, because I didn't realize this in its entirety during the battle. I had scouted his Fimir Balefiend, and I know that he had Flamestorm, Piercing Bolts, and Burning Head. And you can see the way that he's lined up in a perfectly straight, blocky line like this. He's hoping to send that Burning Head right through all my Chaff and then quickly put me out of the fight. If you see this type of thing, one thing you can do is just refuse that engagement in such a way that really helps him. Engage like 1 infantry unit and some heroes, and then come over here and maybe do the same thing. And don't give him that middle line. Make them move, and it'll screw up their plan. Anyway, let's get going. I go ahead and attack him head on. I was feeling fairly confident Gonna have a hard time with some of his infantry, but I have plenty of units to terrorize, plenty of units to deal with his heroes, and if his frostworms land, I can put quite a beating on them if I get the right units in the right place. Now, right off the bat, you're gonna see me go after these Famir warriors with some skeleton spears, but I mean, these Famir warriors are just gonna take a crap all over, and I just ignore a Marauder champion out here on the edge. You can see here he's gonna do some piercing bolts, kind of an odd spot for piercing bolts, but it'll do some damage. Guy's just trying to spend his magic. Yeah, it did a lot of damage to those spearmen and other units, so not so bad at all. He may have been trying to get the Vargulf in that as well. Piercing bolts of burning can do a lot of damage in the right situation. So here's one of my Vargulfs, and then over here I make a bit of a micro mistake with Blood Knights. I'm gonna get caught in the Famir warriors, and then I've got a Hex Wraith in. I'm gonna try and go terrorize the enemy. I've already summoned some zombies behind the enemy lines, and then I've used the Dire Pack to tie down one Frostworm, which was trying to help take out my infantry. This is to hopefully keep this fight going for longer, because my chaff is gonna get beat up really bad by Norsca. Here comes the predicted Burning Head, and it's gonna get some of my troops because I took that engagement, but it almost probably would have been better on this flank because I was losing the fight pretty convincingly over there as well, and I think that he would have wrapped this one up relatively quick, but he did not get this flank at all, so I do lose all my chaff on one flank, but my opponent got really greedy with his Frostworm after my Hex Wraiths, and he is going to get absolutely wrecked by Blood Dragons, and here come the Wraiths just for a quick finish. I probably shouldn't do this because they'll take damage, but I wanted to get rid of this Frostworm really quick. The second Frostworm is safer because I haven't been able to get as clean of an engagement on it. And then in the middle, I've been using my two Vargulfs to bully the enemy infantry and the Marauder Cheiftan. I've used my bats to just tie down Balefiend for a minute. And I summoned Krell to go after his leaders. This is not a bad idea, but Krell would be better used against the Balefiend because he counts as large. And I could just leave the Vargulfs to deal with the Marauder champion. Nevertheless, Krell's pretty tough. He does a lot of weapon damage. He'll certainly be doing some work. Now, Kemmler, I'm trying to just keep him safe at this point. And thank goodness, one of my White Kings got caught in the Famir warriors. Big mistake on my part. The other one, though, is right where he needs to be, which is fighting a bunch of armored infantry. Just keeping them busy. But I've lost my chaff in a lot of places because his infantry was just far superior to what I had here, far superior. The enemy lord gets knocked out of the fight, and Balefiend is getting punched around over here. I'm going to keep going after him, and my Vargulfs are going to start getting dangerous at this point because unless he gets them off the map quickly, he's going to find himself in a lot of trouble. My opponent tries to bring in another piercing bolts here, but I broke up the engagement. Unfortunately, moved my Vargulfs right into the middle of it. Yikes. But I did get my cavalry out, and I'm going to continue to cycle charge here with my cavalry and try and rout these Marauder Spears. But you can see my infantry was so beat up that the Marauder Spearmen don't even terror rout on a rear charge to Hex Wraiths. Shows you how badly my chaff was getting beaten at that point. Now I have used some healing and some summons. I put a summons over here just to keep this whole flank busy. Look how effective this is. One unit of zombie summons, and Krell is keeping a whole enemy flank at bay, and it's been fantastic. Now, unfortunately for Krell, he's getting knocked around like that he's no one, but he does manage to get in here and cause some pretty substantial damage because Krell gonna be Krell, but his life is, well, it was already forfeit because he's dead. Look, man, they need to fix his knockdown. That guy gets knocked down like crazy. But while my opponent was busy with Krell and those zombies, look at this. I've managed to wrap up almost all of the remainder of his army. He is pursuing me with a few more Marauder champions, and I am trying to get some of my units clear over here, my Hex Wraiths and my Blood Knights, get them out of a fight. Krell's going to get finished off. He did some good work, at least in my opinion. He helped get rid of a Marauder Chieftain. And over here, my Dire Pack was able to put away a Frostworm. It'll probably come back from routing. This is a fairly close fight, albeit it's in my favor at the moment. But that could change, depending on how a few things go. Now, see, a zombie summons here gives this White King a whole new life, because he can sit here and cause damage, while the zombies tank most of the damage from the Marauder champions, so zombie summons will really, really go well. Now, as he tries to reinforce with his Famir warriors, I'm just throwing everything I can at the Famir warriors just to keep them away for a minute. I'm trying to clean up this Marauder champion because it's really close to the edge of the map. My Hex Wraiths need to get out of here before the Famir warriors catch up. So you can see I'm going to try and pull them out. They're still in good health, but they're pretty bogged down in a fight, and there's not as much chaff to help keep them safe. At this point, probably one of my biggest advantages are the Vargulfs. They're healing unless they're taking too much damage. Here comes another Burning Head. And the little chaff I have takes some pretty significant damage there. So things definitely still tough for me. I'm going to try and rear charge the Familiar Warriors, though I don't want to stay in this fight for long. And you can see my Hex Wraiths get into a really weird formation. And then when I try and pull them out, they're bound to take a lot of damage. So I'm going to put a zombie summon in here as well. Just try and bog this fight down with as many hit points as I can. These Familiar Warriors have racked up 155 kills. They're not done yet. Remember, this Frostworm causes magic damage. Balefiend causes magic damage. The Familiar Warriors cause it, so I've got a lot of units to deal with. Again, the power bar remains in my favor. Kemmler's healthy, but my winds of magic are very low at this point. I'll be lucky to get off even one more zombie summon, and I've still got a lot of regrouped Norscan troops to deal with. You can see the breath attacks coming in from the Frostworm that has regrouped, so we have a lot to deal with. Like I said, it looked like it was heavily in my favor, but you can see there the power bar is actually kind of creeping back towards the center, so I've lost some of my chaff. But my leadership remains relatively intact. Kemmler, I'll commit him where I see the right opportunity, but I've got to make sure and keep him safe and keep his power bar, or his health bar up. I'm going to just only use my cavalry for rear charges here to try and cause some damage. But there's limited places for them to be super effective because almost everything here has magic damage. But my units need support. I can't just leave them alone. So it's kind of putting me between a rock and a hard place here. Now, the Frostworm got very weak, and Krell was able to get in and help knock it out of the fight. So Krell, Kemmler, good grief, man. These guys are too close. I can't keep them straight. So I managed to get the Frostworm out of the fight, and that really just leaves us with some Familiar Warriors. And fortunately for me, I did have just enough magic for one more zombie summon. And with the help of those zombies, I feel pretty confident that my Vargulfs can help finish this. The Familiar Warriors are just going to be running out of steam and running out of support from the rest of their army. Balefiend was the only thing keeping their leadership in this. And when these guys started wavering, Kemmler went to hit the regrouping troops. We were able to finish it in a pretty tight fight here with Norsca. So I want to talk about a couple of things that I pointed out and maybe some things that I didn't, as far as things to take away from my gameplay here, because I'm trying to be more thoughtful about my gameplay. I don't want to be like a pro or something at the game, but I'd like to play well. A couple of things. It was obvious my opponent was trying to set me up for a Burning Head. I gave you all some advice about how to handle that. Also, if your opponent is keen on being in a really straight line, it costs you some money, but one way you can keep them out of a straight line is to bring a Wind of Death. With my opponent lined up the way he did, if he would have tried a Burning Head, but I had Wind of Death, he would have taken the worst of that engagement. Wind of Death would have killed most of his army. And so it would have been very, very bad. So that's another thing you can do to keep people honest if you're worried about them using that type of thing against you as the vampires. I would say a couple of things that have become clear to me after playing some different vampire players over the last little while is some of my traditional vampire armies, I don't really like the way they work. I really like a whole lot of combined arms with the vampires with a lot of chaff infantry. Even in this case where I brought a ton of skeletons, I sometimes wonder if I should have maybe swapped a couple of these out for even more zombies. Zombies are just a whole lot of hit points. They're a great charge buffer, and they can go in and absorb spells and missiles and all kinds of stuff here too. So maybe instead of picking Fellbats, which didn't do me a lot of good here, maybe I should have just picked more zombies. Probably could have gotten several units in, and that could have been a big play. But I've been really liking kind of the combined arms, and not necessarily bringing one big tanky lord, but giving your opponent a whole bunch of different units they got to worry about. Vampires are hard to beat if you can't take their leadership out. And if you bring a bunch of hero or kind of single entity units, plus you got Hex Wraiths and Blood Knights and all these other units they have to worry. There's a lot of units to worry about. And some factions will struggle to get an answer to all of these. Just be careful with the way you use them, and I think it makes for a fun play with the vampires. Anyway, appreciate D-Ross for playing me a fun game. It's an interesting army he had here. I like the fact that he brought magic damage. Definitely a must against the vampires, so you don't just get, ghost armied. The Famir Balefiend definitely got some kills with those burning heads. I knew he would as soon as I had kind of realized and put two and two together. That's why I said for instance, all these kills he got, there was no reason for me to feed him that many. and I could have taken a different engagement, maybe picked a few things a little different. With Krell, when I summoned him, again, key lesson there, should have gone straight for Bale Fiend. He was a better target, whereas the Vargos may have been better at taking out the Marauder Chieftain. Also, another thing that I've learned here, Krell gets knocked over a lot. Holy crap, something to think about, maybe in how I used him. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this one. Appreciate my opponent. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all soon with some more action. If you want to get involved in some games, but you don't want to play in ladder like I am here, feel free to join the Discord. There's plenty of people there who want to play games with you. The link's in the description. We'd love to have you there. It's a big community, but it feels like a small community because people are very, very good about welcoming you in. Anyway, I will see you all soon. HeirofCarthage signing out.